there's a pretty big divide between the two identities that I lead, my civil identity and my operational identity, because my credentials are deeply, deeply undercover. They can't be accessed by anyone, not even Central Intelligence in themselves can access it. Operatives like me and other undercover operatives have been undercover for decades, leading up to this very time where we are, where our operation is finalizing. So my life is primarily that of someone who has been horrifically victimized by this network, not for reasons necessarily because I am an operative helping to tear down their empire and rescue all of their, what they call supply, the victims. The logistics of the point where I started getting the community organized stalking comes from my family court case. Because my job has intertwined me with a lot of criminals, unbeknownst to me, the full extent of my kid's father's involvement. In fact, I had really no briefing and no knowledge of him other than he had network ties. That man, in short, and I don't want to have to explain the entire situation, but he tracked my reproductive cycle, and after meeting me online, moved 3 blocks from me and stalked me online and got me a job working on a film set, which is, supposedly how we met because we both worked in the film industry. He invited me over after we wrapped, and that night he used coercive control and held me down to make sure that he finished inside me. When he had spent the entire night telling me that he did not want to have sex. So he date raped me, and he did it at a time that he knew that there were high chances of me getting pregnant. And this isn't speculation or confusion. This man admitted to my face that he premeditated the pregnancy and told me that because we were both the blood type of O negative, that there was an 80% chance that the pregnancy was going to stick. In fact, the next day he kept telling me about the baby that was inside me after he had assaulted me, and then to flip the tables and put me under his control, he made me feel like I was a perpetrator because he was going through trauma. I was sober at the time, and apparently I was too sexy or sexual, which triggered him to assault me. And I'm not kidding you, and I hate discussing these aspects of my life because your credibility goes down when you describe the just absolute lunacy of your abuser. This man spent my entire pregnancy accusing me of rape. When I told him that I was not interested in being in a relationship with him and that we could look into being co-parents, finding lawyers and getting a parenting plan, he denied any communication for a couple days and then sent me a text saying he had lawyers too, and he said no. And he accused me of rape for 9 months, and even after my twin boys were born. So having this man intertwined with my life was in part the role that I have as an undercover operative. What that man did to me was a wild card. And my pursuit in trying to save my children's life, spending 4 years documenting every crime that man committed against my children. And he committed them overtly as a means of control. Because his reach within this system was, in his mind, impenetrable. So, despite having irrefutable evidence, nearly every week, because there was a pattern that was displayed in my children throughout their visitation, which was only 8 hours on Sundays with this man. Watching your children leave your home safe, happy, and at a solid baseline, coming home with adult handprints on parts of their body that indicated they had been restrained, fingernail indents on their waist, hips, and thighs, and pain in their bottoms so severe that not only did they completely regress in potty training, I couldn't train them at all. The chafing scars and the fear, night terrors, screaming, all were documented with a 65 to 80% burden of proof, meaning pictures, timestamp pictures, before and after witnesses, acute, measurable behavioral changes, and several affidavits from doctors listing their concerns relating to the abuse that was obvious in their mind, because their abuse is arbitrary. Child abuse is arbitrary. There's every children's hospital has an ED list that outlines the criteria of injuries on children. And every single time my kids came home after he hurt them, they had multiple injuries that met that criteria. Point blank, irrefutable. So after realizing that the court rewards protective parents in their silence, I documented everything for 4 years until they started talking. And the things that they said are unmistakable. Unmistakable. Daddy puts tape on brother's feet and arms. The reaction to the tape was terror. Daddy hurts me in the bottom and pours daddy juice on me. Daddy hurts me and I'm not supposed to tell. The displays on the other end of the spectrum of their sexuality at age three was undeniable. They would take off their clothes and get down to their diapers and crawl on top of each other and push each other's head down and call each other my money makers. You're my moneymaker. They would pose in front of fake cameras. They told me about the house where the games were played in the basement, and that the night doctor checked their body upstairs in the room with the medical bed. And this isn't the audio for me to describe the details of very fucking blatant sexual abuse of children. Babies. So living through 4 years of this, and it would escalate whenever I would try to speak out, whenever I would make a move, finding support, or I would confront this fucking monster, because he loved to do things like break into my home at night and go in and threaten my toddlers. And then he would leave things like a pocket knife on their play table and the window open and a trail of his movement, so that I would be very clear about what he was doing. He went as far as using the Alexa Bluetooth. He hacked it, something I don't think he can do himself. But again, this man works within a network of individuals who commit these crimes as a fucking profession. So at night, he would use the Alexa to talk to my children. There's a name for it. It's called psychodriving. It's a form of mind control used through hypnosis to influence subliminal thoughts and the forming consciousness of little children. And I found out about the Alexa because my kids told me that Alexa would talk to them at night, and that weird, scary noises would come out of it. Noises like hypnosis tones, frequencies. Something that the occult uses heavily on their victims. I slept out in the living room one night to see if I could catch it, and I heard him speaking to them. And this is before my kids really articulated that Alexa was talking. So I went outside and fucking tried to hunt him around my house. Come to find that he had hacked the Alexa and every other device, because he had jailbroke our Wi-Fi and got into every electronic in our home, including the security camera. After my children admitted on record that he raped them by saying what they said, "Daddy hurt me in the bottom," etc. This was in January of 2020. This crime was committed in reaction to me filing a form with Child Support Services. Mind you, I was being financially abused, and I had no resources, so I couldn't have an income to actually support my children, and there was no childcare in the area anywhere. And our parenting orders were strategically left blank in forcing this man to pay his share of childcare. So I reported his work because he, in his arrogance, he emailed the judge, which is, something that is unlawful, and tried to ask for her sympathy and not forcing him to pay child support. And he listed his new place of work, so I reported it. And when he found out the next week that his paycheck was siphoned, he hurt my kids and made it very fucking clear what this man does when anybody fucking pisses him off. My kids told 4 adults what happened to them. A police report was made, and I filed an immediate protection order in Island County. And I was shifted around for weeks until they could figure out their game plan. The Island County court told me to take the matter up before the judge. The Island County Police told me that they didn't know which jurisdiction these crimes would be investigated in. The crimes happened in Seattle at his home, so the SPD was going to take care of it. And King County Court was going to take care of our protection order. Then he had his lawyer facilitate the dates of the protection order so that they could secure their fellow Order of the Eastern Star judge, who nervously could not look at my kid's father during that hearing, and then proceeded to anoint his lawyer, saying, "Oh, I've heard so much about you." I outlined a 50-page document. The evidence of what this man has done to me is so fucking profound that there's no argument. There's nothing that can be said to explain away what's being done to my kids. And what I didn't know is that CPS can simply write a letter to the judge on the day of your protection order to protect yourself from a man and your children from a man who's raping and selling the content of the violent rapes as a means of income. And it goes much, much deeper than that. So this judge, after I got done, I had 7 people in my family there on the stand. And there's a woman listening to my story who was likely there for the similar reasons, who was bawling. Her face was so red. She was crying so hard listening to what was happening to my kids. And this judge smiled and relished in telling me that I'm the abuser because I took my kids to 12 sexual abuse forensic evaluations, which was fucking completely made up, because no forensic evaluation, sexual abuse evaluation, can happen on the accord of a parent anywhere, ever. And the judges and the doctors and the police and the CPS personnel all know that. So this lie was, it was just a blatant means of exerting their power and letting me know that they're going to do exactly what they're going to do to my children. And if I don't shut up and take it, they're going to destroy me. And that's what they did. I haven't just been gang stalked, humiliated, run down. The police, after years of illegally covering up a foundation of forensic evidence that supersedes most case law in our state because of the extensiveness of my reporting, due to my training, they illegally, there are reports on record that evidence was submitted every time. They worked with my kid's father and his friends as they hacked my phone, went under my hidden file where I kept the pictures, having to document every single one of their injuries. Because I want to tell you this, if I didn't do that, he would take any opportunity to try to fucking tell people that I was abusing my kids. And he would say, "Look, there's a bruise." He would fucking horrifically abuse my kids and then try to get other people to think that I was doing it. So, number one, they put me in a position where I couldn't tell anybody who was a mandated reporter, because if they mandated report to CPS would immediately call Tony because they're friends, because they're in a fucking network, a fucking mass pedophilia, blackmail network. So if anything got reported, which it did, over 100 reports in 3 years, over 100. Then he would be called and he would immediately file a restraining order and engage in abusive litigation. At one point, he had filed 12 restraining orders against me over the course of 5 months. Most of them were denied. I have never once made a report to CPS. I followed up with one report on the recommendation of the crooked CPS officer who told me that I had to call in and individually report every single incident instead of having one case with one investigation that encompasses all the fucking abuse. So the police did this too to me. They told me that they had to individualize each situation. And then if it met the standards, then they would investigate, which is fucking bullshit. They just lied to my face. And knowing that I knew that they were lying and fucking broke the law repeatedly. Because a criteria of evidence mandates by law investigative steps as a response. And they would conveniently lose the evidence, or they would get something said by a CPS agent that would slowly but surely and then very quickly turn everything around on me. I'm going to tell you, they used every single diagnosis. It's on record, every single one. They just pivot from each one. And they would twist around all the evidence. So they would use this man's crimes, his behaviors, his motivation, his delusions. I mean, this is a man who, when the boys were just months old, told me that they were allergic to milk and other foods because he decided. And so instead of using the fucking notebook that laid out their entire day, he decided that he knew better, and he would feed them 3 bites of organic puree that he made himself and non-dairy formula. And then when they were starving and then they didn't want to drink the formula, he would force feed them. And then the next day they would be afraid to drink that bottle, so they would go 2 days without getting the calorie intake they needed, so they flatlined. And this is all documented. So because I had repeatedly stood my ground and took evidence with pictures, reports, eyewitnesses, I was accused of having Munchausen syndrome, schizophrenia, paranoid delusion, everything in the book, everything. They created a wraparound smear campaign to a circle of professionals in the community, in this, child abuse community that had no exposure to our story, had never met me or my kids. And then they, the family court judge appointed a fucking crooked lawyer to be an investigator, and she spent 3 weeks talking to those people that the fucking crooked CPS agent, who, mind you, made it very clear that they knew that he was abusing them and that they were gonna fucking come after me. So they played it out for a year, and then suddenly they just came after me. And every time someone would report, he escalated the abuse, so it was happening weekly. And so I was stuck in a position where I had to do something because my children were suffering and I had to get them help. So then they would, each report, they would turn around and say the mother's making up stories. And they would send repeated CPS agents to my house. They opened multiple investigations. The kids would come home from being raped and wouldn't eat for days, and they would claim that I was starving the boys. And I would tell them this, and it was on record, and it's on fucking record to this day. It's fucking on record. All of it. So if you systematically fucking hunt a victim or a protected parent to the point of severe exhaustion, you don't need to cover up your tracks. You don't need to do the certain paperwork to make it look like you didn't break the law. You can just fucking do whatever the fuck you want because you're a bunch of psychopaths who fucking rape and abuse children as a means of sport. I've seen my children suffer in ways that will give, if anybody listened to it in one sitting, you would throw up. You wouldn't be able to fucking feel your fucking body because it is so fucking sick and painful. And now they're 8. They're twins. They're 8. And they have been so carefully and strategically fucking conditioned through severe, extreme abuse that their subconscious controls the priority to protect their father's freedom over everything. The silence of his crimes is at the heart of their life force. Their life depends on protecting him, because if they don't, when they told, which they did for years, they told, including telling their kindergarten counselor that he was raping them. Both of them told, because my lawyer told me that the school would be the ones to end up getting him, because the kids would tell the teacher. So when they would come home and tell me, and I couldn't fucking do anything for them, I told them that their counselor at school was there for them. And I didn't tell them to say anything, but I said that if they want to tell him anything, things that they're afraid to tell me, he's the guy to do that. They both told him. And it was, as a result, he spent the last 6 months of their kindergarten year having them fucking gang raped, tied up and gang raped the night before my visit. And it took like no time at all to see what was going on, because one of them would play it out. When he played with his toys, he would make clay figures and tape the clay figures to the bed and make knives to their throats. And the other one was so overly concerned with his brother. And I could tell that he was being forced to watch, because he systematically abuses them according to their character and their strengths and their weaknesses. So now one of my twins, who's more of an extrovert, has no memory of being abused. That's 2 years after he told the school counselor. Oh, mind you, the school counselor is a friend. He's a fucking friend. He's from Asheville, North Carolina, which is the same place, the small town across the country that this man moved my children to after the kindergarten year. But he had to move them out of state because he couldn't fucking parent my kids. And the list of evidence that I had was so profound. So he fucking found another judge that he paid off. I'm gonna tell you, if you haven't heard any of my recordings, there is no fucking doubt what this man is doing. Nobody is confused, okay? There are people who are fucking helping him by either blackmail, coercion, or fucking because they're sick just like him. He took the stand of submitting his bank records, which were individual deposits, multiple weekly deposits that ranged from $1,500 to $7,000. So we went through all of those deposits and asked him where they're from, and he said on the stand that he didn't fucking remember. He didn't fucking remember. Come to find out that this act was intentional, because the people who were paying him to see the fucking content, or him selling my children to them, well, access to their guilt was readily available on his bank records. And asking the judge to subpoena and go into depth to find out how this man makes his money, when there was just a former police advocate, 20-year police advocate who specialized in organized child abuse, that was on the stand and said irrefutably that he's exploiting these children. When asking the judge to look into the fucking bank records, anybody who has a brain can put fucking 2 and 2 together. That's how we're deciphering the whole Epstein saga. The number one trail of evidence in investigations is through bank deposits. And so being a crooked, non-constitutional court, the judge just simply had to ignore. He just ignored our request. He ignored my 5 witnesses and sided with the woman, the lawyer, who spent 3 weeks writing up a fucking completely fraudulent, made up out of air report that she created with the help of the CPS agents and the other fucking criminals that were involved. So if you can see, by this time, it's coming to my understanding that my kid's father has always been this. In fact, he was recruited. He was sought out after by 2 older rich women who happened to be members of the Order of the Eastern Star. They paid for his college, took him under his wing. They've been supporting him for the last 20 years. And they have also been training him, because he's a psychopath, and they knew that, as a producer of extreme, violent sexual torture. Content that is to be made for people in positions of power that these people can maintain control over. So this is a system. So it became very apparent why my team crossed paths with this man. And you can imagine how fucking devastated I am for that betrayal. I'm devastated. They have destroyed my life, knowing that they could not fucking rescue my kids and I. Because all these systems are happening in the civilian lower courts. The maritime law, police officers are beholden to serve the corporations, corporate interests. The United States Corporation and the hundreds of corporations that are partnered with the U.S. And at the heart of all of them is the human trafficking trade. All of them. Whatever aspect that their money benefits, it is a multifaceted, multi-layered monster. So when my role to activate and participate in the rescue operations came about, I have been, he bought another judge, and they allowed this man to sit on the stand for 2 hours, sounding like a fucking 12-year-old who brags about his parenting, never once saying anything about being loving, nurturing. He's clean, he's entertaining, he's organized. He had 2 witnesses. Guess who they were? Oh, they were the women that fucking recruited him and turned him into a fucking child fucking torturing professional. Yeah. Oh, by the way, and those 2 women live across the country. One of them had never met my kids, and the other one had only seen them twice. Those were his witnesses. So never mind I think a total of 12 eyewitnesses, and the majority of my witnesses were professionals. Never mind that. Because it's never mattered. I could go through everything they did to me, but it was a joke. It was staged. It was a humiliation ritual. See, I'm a survivor. I had family members. I come from a long generation of families who have been involved in ritual abuse. Organized ritual abuse. And I don't say satanic because that word is used to discredit victims. There's a new term that is not at the top of my head right now that is used for survivors. The reason why I was recruited to work on this task force is because I'm a survivor. This operation has been overseeing these crimes for decades. And they specifically sought out survivors who they knew would not turn into perpetrators. And then using governmental resources, they intervened in my abuse, because I was a MK Ultra victim. I tested in having an IQ over 140, so I tested in the program. I wasn't in the GATE program. I was in the special education program because I was dyslexic. Because my uncle was tasked, he was my main handler, he was tasked with repeatedly abusing me in a way where he forced me to read the Bible and Latin fucking whatever, Satan hymns at 4 years old, before I could even read, even though I could read. He was forcing me to read it on one foot naked while I held one of those lamps that they use on sets that heat up. He'd hold it right above my head, and he would force me to read it for hours on end. So it created a neural divergence, and I am pretty severely dyslexic when I am triggered. I also was bullied horrifically. So it was really difficult for me to read. So they put me in the special education program where they could basically just separate me from everybody and do what they want. And although I don't have memories of what I was, where I was being taken or what was going on at school, I do have memories of everything that happened at night. We lived really close to a naval base in Seattle, former naval base. And the warehouses were occupied by Seattle City Council, some faction of the county's governmental, operations. Huge buildings, warehouses. So I would be taken at night, and just like Stranger Things, I can't even watch that show. But I kid you not, I could go through every single thing in a way that anybody who listens to me, unless they're possessed demonically, which a lot of, sad to say, but Democrats and liberals are fucking possessed. So all they can do is argue their standpoints in a way that just flusters the conversation so nobody can actually get a point through. Anybody who would sit down and listen to me go through the entire thing, there's no way that you could doubt what happened to me. So something happened when I was 12 years old. I had my appendix out, and at that time my parents were approached. Now, mind you, most parents who are in these circles, and I'm going to give you a very clear and factual ratio of our society that is involved in monthly satanic rituals. 30% of our population.